right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Paris, the People's Pundit. I hope you all had a great holiday weekend. Really, that's what it was. A happy Independence Day. I did myself. I really enjoyed myself. I had a good weekend, and I hope that you guys did too. All right, but there was a lot that happened over the weekend and before the weekend going into it. I'm going to read a little bit about the big, beautiful bill because that is at the heart of this breakup between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And that's what we'll talk about today. What, if anything, is the impact of Elon Musk's America Party? And there's something a little bit about history. Maybe it can be a little bit intuitive here. What can it teach us about how the third parties have fared in America in the past and whom will it hurt, if any? Right? So is it a dud or is it a spoiler? And that's what we'll do. But we got to talk a little bit about what started this off. But before we do, let's get into what Trump said about it. All right. He obviously has to respond. Elon Musk actually fired the paperwork. He spent a lot of money on the presidential election. I know, I can tell you that personally, that group of his knocked on my door more than 2 times. I believe it was 3, maybe 4 times. To see had I voted, if I voted early. So he put his money where his mouth is. All right. It was not just in a state like Pennsylvania where they dedicated quite a bit of time. It was in a lot of places. And I have, as usual, looked at the commentary from people who think they know these things, they think they understand, and they don't. They don't know what they're talking about. Right. So there's a couple of things that all of this, answering these questions, will depend upon. We don't know the answers to all of those questions so far, but we can speculate based on history and what we know about the MAGA coalition and what Elon Musk is trying to appeal to here. Okay. All right. But first, let's take a look at what Trump said. All right. Here's what he said about Elon Musk the other day. All right. The president feeling the need to respond should tell you everything you really need to know. I do think that Trump has a habit of dropping these bombs, and it's fine that he does it to, on Truth Social, where his core supporters are. But the message that he's starting to deliver here is the right message to fight back against Elon Musk if he really does intend to go through with this. Now, the rest of the country does not really know everything about Elon Musk. All right. They don't. They know he's the SpaceX guy. He's the Tesla guy. Maybe some of them know he used to support Joe Biden and then he supported Donald Trump. There is something that works in Trump's favor and Republicans' favor, and that is there is a small group of people that Elon Musk is still popular with. This almost the sum total of his popularity came from his realignment with over to Trump's side in support of the president. However, he does speak for a small group of people, and that small group of people really should not be taken lightly. Now, again, let's just read his statement because I do think the president, as usual, has good political instincts and is going at he's starting in the right direction. Okay. Here's what he said. I am saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a, all caps, train wreck over the past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third political party, despite the fact they have never succeeded in the United States. The system seems not designed for them. Let's finish reading this couple of sentences before, I address that. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos. And we have enough of that with the radical left Democrats who have lost their confidence and their minds. That is true about the history, except for brief periods. That is true of the history of third parties in the United States. They have not done well to survive. However, the Republican Party is surviving on Trump. It's surviving on Trumpism. And I would honestly say that explains it all, because the rise of Trump is because Democrats have lost their minds and both ruling classes have abdicated their duty to govern effectively for the great majority of Americans, or even be responsive, let alone representative And they have failed, and they have managed the decline of this country for years and years and years. They destroyed our peace dividend in the 90s after a long and costly Cold War. And instead of putting that in the piggy bank for future generations, they started reckless wars in the Middle East and they crashed the economy. And they did that together. So, again, Trump, though, was able to rise out of the ashes of a dead Republican Party like a phoenix, but he did not rise as basically a mimic or a mirror of what that party was before it did go up in flames and turn into ashes. He came out as something that we like to think of as new, right? When we say MAGA, it's like it's a new thing. In truth, Donald Trump really brought back the original form of the Republican Party in the modern era. We know it because we're all what? I'm 43. I'm going to be 44. And we mostly remember the post-Reagan era. And even Reagan himself, administration was stuffed with neocons. The Gipper was no neocon himself, but it was stuffed with neocons and traitors. And the minute the guy went, be nice. The minute the guy lost his mind, they exploited him to get a complete and total fraud elected. They tried to use him again to get him reelected, but because he broke his promise and fractured the Republican Party, losing part of the Reagan coalition to the Ross Perot coalition. This is important because these people, maybe they're not the same age. Maybe some aren't even alive anymore. Maybe some don't even vote anymore. But their demographics, what they represent, remains the same. People largely forget that about 20% of the Ross Perot coalition, a little less, was Hispanic, right? It wasn't an overtly white coalition. It's just not true. But these people decided the Republican Party was going in a bad direction, a direction they could not follow, and they splintered off. It became something that they did not recognize. Before that, Richard Nixon, we think of him as a disgraced president, but he was very much a born, not of ruling class stock, who raised himself up and had a very what's the word I'm looking for? He was not a great in front of the camera politician, but he in fact was a very good retail politician. And even though that's may not suit our definition today, but he still represented the roots of the Republican Party, which was not to start new wars, to get out of them, to care more about America at home, which he did. He embraced something called détente instead of advancing. This like very war hawkish posturing during the Cold War. He instead went to China and met with the chairman so he could try to cool down this escalation of tension with the Soviet Union and balance against them instead of using force. He very much was a realist, Richard Nixon, which is what the Republican Party has always been until the neocons and the neoliberals took over it, all right, after the fall of Reaganism. Right, so Trump reemerged out of that dead party and brought back what was original. Trump didn't make up America first. He resurrected it. Ronald Reagan himself used to use that. And way before even Ronald Reagan, the American business first Republican Party cared more about domestic policy at home, cared more about the American economy, cared more about fundamental realism as a form of statecraft than starting global world wars that led to global orders so we can govern the world, blah, 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 blah. That is not who the Republican Party was. That's not who they were. All right. So that is important to understand because the more neoliberal or neocon the Republican Party gets, the more room they do leave open for a third party. Okay. Now, again, Trump is right. There have been periods of success for third-party candidates, but not widespread. Maybe for a presidential candidate, the only thing, and this is two different things that we should take into consideration, is that there wasn't always just the Republican and the Democratic Party. Yes, most of those changes came about in the period of the early Republic to the Gilded Era, but there have been movements that fundamentally changed the parties, all right? And now we have the modern day Republican Party and the modern day Democratic Party, but it isn't, nothing lasts forever. And it isn't out of the realm of possible that the Republican Party commits political suicide. They've done this before. They were handed the future of the country multiple times on a silver platter and blew it, including one of them, by the way, I just mentioned, which was Richard Nixon. The guy had the world at his fingertips. Republicans in Congress had to answer to nobody. But because they're crooked and stupid, they fell prey to an establishment that backs another party, a ruling class, an administrative state that backs another party, something because they can't self-perpetuate on those values. The Republican Party stands for something that is opposed to the ruling class, if you break it down to the core of what republicanism is. So they have to oppose it. Doesn't matter if they do it during the era of slavery, and that's the tool that they use to keep their power and their seat at the table. Doesn't matter. It's changed forms over the years. But if you break the modern day Republican Party down to what its core beliefs are now, it's fundamentally the enemy of a self-perpetuating bloated bureaucracy. But so many of them are not, because they're corrupt and they're stupid and all these other things we talk about all the time. So, I mean, there's third party chiseling away at electoral vote share, and then there's the possibility that there could be a new party altogether, and we shouldn't confuse those two things. Now, I'm not saying that we're here. I'm just saying that these things do happen over time. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing. All right. Where do we leave off? The one thing third parties are good for is the complete creation and complete and total disruption and chaos. And we've had enough of that. Radical left Democrats who have lost their confidence and their minds. Republicans, on the other hand, are a smooth running machine that just passed the biggest bill of its kind in the history of our country. It is a great bill, but unfortunately for Elon, it eliminates the ridiculous electric vehicle mandate, which would have forced everyone to buy an electric car in a short period of time. I do think there's some of that going on there, but I also think there's something else going on. Elon Musk represents an almost libertarian-like strain on the new right, or at least he's pretending to represent that now. They don't give two damns about immigration, guys. They don't care about reforming immigration. Maybe he'll drone on and on about illegal immigration, but understand that Elon Musk wants a robust domestic immigration program. He does not care about reforming legal migration at all. This was a huge fight. Bannon went to the mat on this because Bannon knew what we all knew. He is at his core a Silicon Valley transplant foreigner who lives off of the labor of foreigners in order to produce the business that he has. That's just a fact. And he lives off of government contracts. And this is important to understand. It is. Trump's going to go into some of it, but I think he's hitting off a little pieces of truth. I was also told by somebody recently that most of the domestic automobile manufacturers did not want this electric vehicle mandate. They saw it as a way to basically put themselves at a disadvantage to contractor companies like Musk's, all right? And who was moving forward with this. And throughout the campaign, he had said, that's right, I'm basically supporting somebody against my own interests. But he's a billionaire. And when billionaires support politicians, they expect things in return. He no doubt expected a carve out for himself and for Tesla. Come on, guys. He's not going to lose billions and billions of dollars. And they were telling me basically that this would have destroyed certain car companies, American car companies, even ones that have most of their manufacturing done in the US, even though they are foreign companies. All right, so foreign owned, but American manufactured, or at least majority manufactured. This would have killed them and the car dealerships that have to push those products. The American consumer didn't want them. There's been lots of research on this, which, by the way, Musk knows. I don't know if he got good research, because he and his company are one of Morning Consult's biggest clients. I don't know if we've shared this enough with you guys so you all know this, but for somebody who's droning on and on about fake polls all before the 2024 election, I find it rather funny, since his company gives a fortune to one of the shittiest pollsters in the industry who gets subsidies through USAID and others, through Politico, through Bloomberg, who also get those subsidies, and then in turn hire them while they're consulting to Fortune 500 companies and giving them horrendous advice like the advice that was given to Budweiser. So I just find it rather remarkable. All right, so he knew that this was not popular and the American consumer didn't want it. Just keep that in mind. People are not allowed to buy whatever they want, gasoline-powered hybrids, which are doing well, or new technologies as they come about. No more. No more electric vehicle mandate. I have campaigned on this for 2 years, and quite honestly, when Elon gave me his total and unquestioned endorsement. Oh, wait a minute. I did miss where he said, I have been strongly opposed to that from the very beginning. People are now allowed to buy whatever they want, gasoline-powered hybrids, etc. I have campaigned on this for 2 years, and quite honestly, when Elon gave me his total and unquestioned endorsement, I asked him whether or not he knew that I was going to terminate the electric vehicle mandate. It was in every speech I made and in every conversation I had. I have no doubt that this is true. No doubt. He said he had no problems with that. I was very surprised. Additionally, Elon asked that one of his close friends run NASA. And while I thought his friend was very good, I'll silence that, I was surprised to learn that he was a blue-blooded Democrat who had never contributed to a Republican before. Elon probably was also. I also thought it inappropriate that a very close friend of Elon, who was in the space business, run NASA, when NASA is such a big part of Elon's corporate life. My number one charge is to protect the American public. All right, there's a lot more going on here. And for members of Book Club on Locals, you know there's something else to that conversation. All right? We've had off-the-record conversations about things that I've been able to learn, and you know that story is a lot bigger. However, it would not at all be even unusual for someone like Elon Musk, who supported Trump in the public and monetary way that he did, to ask for that favor. It is inappropriate. It is corruption. I don't know what else you call it. And of course, Elon can't make any money in the free market, guys. All right, let me just put it simple. Elon Musk cannot make money in the free market. Elon Musk makes money off of the government. So it makes sense, and it's also a bit ironic that he would be put as the head of something like DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency and Accountability, right? Because at one token, it's ironic, or maybe another word, given that his interests lie so much with taking from the taxpayers, a taker. And in return, he's supposed to invent all of these things that are going to become huge benefits to mankind, and particularly and hopefully, specifically, U.S. society. But that's not really what they're doing together. And for those of you in Book Club, you know more about this. They believe something. The advancement of that work, the space program, and other stuff, I'm not going to get into it. They have a mutual goal, meaning him and Trump. But he's still, again, a guy who relies on the government to pay his way. You buying a rocket ship lately, America? You buying some components that allow you to re-land a rocket? Are you investing in the lunar landing module? Come on. How many of you out there are going to buy one of Tesla's electric vehicles? Give me a break. This Cybertruck looks cool. Most people I know don't own one. Those that I do know, actually, a couple of them, don't, the reviews are mixed. I mean, have we all not? I should have dug this up. My son said to do it, and I should have. You all know the video when they're like, it's bulletproof, and then the glass breaks. It was. Right? Up to a certain caliber, up to a certain amount. I mean, it cannot survive in the marketplace. So I I see Trump's point here, and there is something to that. However, Musk is not a dumb man. And there are some things, and we'll see how far he takes this. He filed the paperwork. You guys all see it. But I'm looking at comments on social media and I'm seeing people mock stuff, mock in general, what this means, whether or not this would be a real threat to the Republican Party. And as usual, the people who have the most to say about it have the least knowledge on the topic. And I'm going to get back to that in a second. But first, I do want to read. I think it's fair, like we just went on and on about criticizing Trump. Elon thinks that the big, beautiful bill is going to basically betray his goal, which is to shrink the size of government and worry about the national debt. That's supposedly Elon's biggest thing, right? It's funny, this comes from a guy who literally lives off of taxpayers printing debt to pay him. It's a little weird if you think about it, guys. It's a little weird. But it is what it is. This is who he says he is and what he cares about. So let's at least give him, I'm going to read this from Just the News. Let's at least give the bill a fair shake here and explain what it is. I will say this. We talked about this last Friday. The CBO never scores things right. It made the taxes permanent, plus a lot of other things that obviously are for the working man, even though the corporate media did not want to sell it like that. But again, they didn't want to sell the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act like that. And they came with the CEO projection. They had $10 trillion over 10 years added to the national debt. But of course, that did not happen because they static score, they don't dynamic score, and increased economic activity and higher wages led to increased revenues to the Treasury, which then helped to offset all the checks you write for Elon Musk and Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But Musk is part of the defense budget. Obviously, he's part of NASA's budget. Obviously. If you think he doesn't have other contracts, you're crazy. Ones you'll never hear about. But it did other things. President Donald Trump's triumph in passing the One Big Beautiful Bill not only demonstrated he could conquer the often maddening politics of Congress, he also set the United States on a fundamentally different course when it comes to taxes, government spending, and domestic policies like Medicaid and food stamps. Both chambers of Congress passed the Trump agenda mega bill this weekend ahead of their July 4 deadline, and it will be signed by the president in a special ceremony on Friday. Of course, we all know this happened already. The legislation has been lauded as a groundbreaking bill with an emphasis on taxes, federal spending, and government policy that could significantly shape the next generation of the American experience. Here's what Trump said about it. There could be no better birthday present for America than the phenomenal victory we just achieved just hours ago when Congress passed, blah, 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 blah. The golden age of America is upon us. I'm telling you, this is going to blow the first term away, and we did great. We got great marks, and this is going to blah, 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 right? The One Big Beautiful Bill is historic when it comes to taxes, including eliminating federal taxes on tips and overtime pay. This is huge for the average. Listen, the ruling class created a service sector economy where there's a professional class, right? There is a professional class that lives it up with this like soft, cushy form of socialism. And then for the rest of the people who get to wait on them working 2-3 jobs, it's a brutal form of fascism where nobody gets ahead. So the fact that this was in this bill, this is a win for them, the little guy on the totem pole. No tax on tips and overtime, creating a deduction for car loan interest payments. That directly will impact me, by the way. It also promises to provide a 12% tax cut for American families making under $100K a year. They also said, in the New York Times, I had to correct their math, and they didn't issue a redaction, that entire thing that we busted them on because their math was bogus. It was funny numbers. It was not real. They were fabricating numbers. We caught them, and they issued a correction. The whole headline was fake. They gutted when they had to correct the math. They had to gut the entire point of writing the article. Yet they did not issue a retraction. They issued a correction and moved on, as if the point of their argument about the bill was still valid. It was not. They argued it was a tax cut for the rich and a tax raise for the working average people of America. That was simply not true. 85% of Americans got a tax cut under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Another 5%, roughly over, a little bit over, had some increase to their taxes, and the rest saw no change. The vast majority got a cut. And if it would have sunsetted, it stands to reason the vast majority would have got a tax increase. It's not that hard to understand. The legislation will also increase the tax credit for children by doubling it to $2,200, boost the standard deduction to $31,500 for families, expand federal education savings and health savings accounts, and make the paid leave tax credit permanent. The laundry list of policy changes were once something conservatives in Congress could only dream about until Trump's election in November. Now, again, lots of where they say that it's adding to the deficit comes from making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent and also these new provisions. If you static score it, you could easily make that argument. There is also reforms. It does reduce funding to programs like Medicaid, which, by the way, we were told illegal aliens could never receive. And then there was a huge debate because of these cuts it would be taking away from them. I thought they did not receive Medicaid. Democrats had argued for years that illegals, people living here, residing in the U.S. illegally, the freaking legal definition of illegal was not eligible, nor could they collect Medicaid. Yet we just had a 36-hour debate over it last week on the floor of the U.S. Senate. SNAP, which is food stamps, right? Here's the other kicker. Trump's bill increases funding for Border Patrol and expands resources for immigration and custom enforcement officials. It also includes funding for building a wall along the southern border. It gives funding to 10,000 new ICE personnel, 5,000 new customs officers, and 3,000 new Border Patrol agents. Here's a big part of this bill, guys. Why? Because, one, the issue alone itself, immigration, is huge to that coalition. It shrinks the percentage of the electorate that Elon Musk can now seek to persuade. Because so much of that group that does splinter off and vote third party does so over certain issues, and one of them is immigration. Illegal specifically, but immigration. Musk cannot argue to these people that he is against illegal immigration and yet was not supporting this bill for other reasons. In fact, there is an argument to make that even if you believed an extra trillion each year, every fiscal year over the next 10 years will lead to $10 trillion more, whatever, 5 trillion actually, or something like this. It's like a half a billion for 10 years, which is 5 trillion. Even if you believe that, the projected savings, if what Trump's immigration policies are intended to do actually work, for instance, the estimates are that it'll save about $260 billion a year for the U.S. taxpayer. So if that is the case, obviously you have to take that off the table. You've already just chopped half those projections in half, which I've seen numerous, I don't know what you want. We're not going to call them anti-immigration groups because that's not what they are. They're anti-illegal immigration and pro-immigration reform, not to mean it in the way that Washington means it. By the way, Trump is being, the next thing, they couldn't get their war, so now they want a bipartisan bill. This is what I'm saying. The Republican Party is so stupid. They're suicidal. They're politically suicidal. At some point, people will get tired of of believing in them. That will happen if this continues. 100%. It's not even a question. The only question is when. But the fact that Elon prioritized some of these other things, and he claims it's fiscal responsibility. Well, I mean, Elon, you could cut your own contracts. You want to start there? You want to save the taxpayer money? You're more than welcome to cut your own contracts, brother. I'm not making that money. I'm not making that kind of money a year, yet I'm funding it. I have to write a check every damn year and give it to the government so they can turn around and give it to people like you. you're more than welcome to sacrifice some of your own damn contracts. I want my money to go to immigration reform, if that's all right with you. But again, think the Ross Perot coalition, which is very much ideologically similar to the group of people now, part of the VEP, the voting eligible population, that would be susceptible to third party votes. All right. And I'm watching my time here because there's something very important about the third party vote we need to get to. They also care about tax cuts for working people. They don't like tax cuts for the rich. They think Wall Street should pay more. They do. They can't stand it. There's no love for fat cats on Wall Street from this group of people. That's why they couldn't stand somebody like Mitt Romney, and millions of them could not even stomach voting for him, even though they didn't particularly like Barack Obama anymore. They were never going to vote for George Bush again because his tax cuts disproportionately hurt them. And he took the country, even though it was brief, overseas. He took the fighting force overseas to fight a war they had no interest in whatsoever. So what? And as it turns out, by the way, that war was a lie too. The Kuwaitis were drilling on Iraqi territory. They were stealing Saddam's oil. They were stealing the Iraqi people's oil. If you were Saddam Hussein, you would have stopped them too. But in any event, they don't care about any of this stuff. They're very much about me. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Somebody's got to care about their own interests. Sure as hell people in Congress don't. They don't want millions flooding over the border every however many years. They don't want social programs going to illegals or people who may need it, but don't. Here, give it to me. I'll open it for you. Yeah, sure. I know you don't want to bother me, but it's okay. Don't go in front of the camera. He's kidding. Yeah, little buddy. There you go. Apple's next. Okay. They don't want their money going to social programs that are being abused by people who never intend to work ever a day in their life. They don't like NAFTA. They don't like the global order. They don't like free trade. So you can see why somebody like Donald Trump could be rather appealing to these people. And by the way, it's done. It's a done deal. He did appeal to these people. That's how he wins Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin. And nobody else can. Even Ohio. Have we seen another presidential candidate run in for president on the Republican side and win the state of Ohio? We have not. So before you call states like Ohio and Iowa, deep red Republican states, let's wait to see if a non-Trump Republican can carry those states. Barack Obama carried Iowa the first time too by double digits. He did. What happened? He ran against Mitt Romney 4 years later and he lost about 6 points, but he still carried it pretty overwhelmingly. 4 years later, his endorsed chosen successor got her ass kicked. So never get comfortable in your views that a state is one way or the other. All right, we can continue reading a little bit more. I got some time because I do want to get to the point of it, though. And it is just a sad truth. And many people don't understand this, but it is a sad truth. And I'm going to give you examples of when it has, in fact, hurt the Republican Party in the past. Aside from the Ross Perot era, the legislation additionally provides funding for key priorities of the new administration, including modernizing air traffic control, which comes in the wake of several deadly plane crashes earlier this year. Oh, by the way, adding work requirements to things for people who seek to join these programs, such as SNAP and Medicaid, right? Food stamps and Medicaid. Republicans claim will help protect the programs for the people they were intended for, including disabled Americans, low-income earners, and pregnant women. It would weed out abuse and fraud. Yeah, that's a winner chicken dinner for these people. And by the way, the vast majority of Americans support work requirements. Having Democrats and some Republicans drone on and on about how draconian that is just is incredibly radical. And when I make comments, like I say, Democrats have lost their mind, it's a fact. When you are polling the ideological spectrum in this country, meaning Where do Americans stand on issues? Almost all of the predominant major issues, Republicans have the public on their side. There are a few wedge issues here and there, such as like the environment or certain elements of healthcare, not even healthcare overall. And let's say abortion, because the public still doesn't trust Republicans not to go like full blown Jimmy Swaggart hypocritical. God rest his soul. Don't mean to talk about the dead, but he was a major negative impact on electoral politics or the Christian right in this country. His hypocrisy dealt a lasting blow that they still have not recovered from. Ditto the Catholic Church, who touches little boys. All right. I mean, it's true. This stuff has hurt the church and the image of Americans. All right. But yeah, I mean, you get my point. All right. But when you pull the ideological spectrum, Republicans have these huge, except for these wedge issues I cited, they have these huge advantages on which one comes closer to your view. And you could give the Republican point of view and you can give the Democratic point of view, and overwhelmingly, Republicans have the side of the American public. The only reason why Democrats can win elections, and there's two, and I'm going to give them to you right now. They have a great PR company in the form of corporate big media. Without them, they're effed. They can't win. They can't. They need 98, 99% of corporate media and all of the channels through which information flows in this country. They need it to be completely rigged and handicapped in their favor. It is a war of information for your mind. It is a war for your mind. It is an information war, and they benefit from it. Republicans don't even have these so-called, conservative or right-wing news agents like Fox News. They don't even really have them. They're frauds pretending to be something they're not so they can get viewership. And at this point, the only one who's still believing it is a few boomers, white boomers. But the second thing is, and this is where Donald Trump should go next, this is a no-brainer, is the census. How the census is conducted in this country. Newly naturalized citizens actually voted for Donald Trump. However, when the census counts illegal residents, those residing in the U.S. illegally, but counts them for electoral college votes, counts them for redistricting, counts them for, by the way, government spending, which is part of this damn problem. Democrats are getting a disproportionate benefit. Without this being done this way, had, for instance, Secretary Wilbur, who was the Secretary of Commerce Department in Trump's first term, had he won the Supreme Court case, Democrats would immediately lose at least 20 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. They would have almost no path. And I'd rather not use like the certain terms of certainty, because in politics, there's so much uncertainty, and there's obviously it may be a low probability, but there's some probability they could win. But there is almost no path to the White House for Democrats if we go from counting these people to not counting these people. Big blue states will lose a lot of electoral college votes, and they will go to red states. It will be, for people who don't know how serious this would impact the electoral college map, Republican candidates wouldn't even need to win the Rust Belt. They would just need to hold the Sun Belt, and it's over. Over. Democrats would have, let me see if if I could put a number on it, they would almost have no path. No way. And they'd be shut out of the House of Representatives until the party platform changed. But that's not the reality. And after I get done and finish reading this, I'm going to give you a recent example of when Small little carved out, based on the system we're operating in, small little chunks of the vote can go a very, very long way. All right, you know what? Let me just take 30 seconds. Yeah. Do I even have this in this new system? Do I have my little 30-second time? I do. All right, let me take a drink of Gatorade. 30 seconds. We'll be right back. You're watching Inside the Numbers. Stay tuned. We'll be more. There will be more. Don't bounce. By the way, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them and share them far and wide. You're watching Inside the Numbers. We'll be back. 15 minutes of that was me tackling with the cap on this Gatorade for this kid. All right. Let me blast through this real quick, and then we got to get into talking about it. All right. You can do that. I'll do it. Hey, I said apples next. You don't like green apples? No. Yes, you do. Stop it. Yes, you do. They're sour, but that's what's so good about them. All right, last quote, and then we move on. This is the most comprehensive and consequential set of conservative reforms in modern history. This big, beautiful bill delivers the greatest single investment in border security and national defense. Don't care about the second one. The largest tax cuts for families and small businesses. The most significant commitment to unlocking America's energy resources. And the largest reduction in spending in the history of the United States by twofold, Budget Committee Chairman Jody Arrington said. Well, all of that remains to be seen. But let me take you back a couple of years when we talk about the impact, because over this bill, he's going to have to argue that these provisions are the reason he started this party, and they're going to have to adopt a party platform. You can't just file something with the FEC and think that you're all of a sudden a viable political force in national in the United States. That is not the case. You'll have to recruit in order to get on the ballot. You will have to gather signatures like crazy. However, you don't need to do this everywhere to make an impact. And that's what some people are missing. In fact, just 6 years ago, Democrats did it. It did it all over the map in the places that mattered. In 2018, the narrative that everybody wants us to believe is that suburban women turned so hard against the Republican Party because of Donald Trump, because they were so anti-Trump. They turned so hard against the Republican Party that it cost them the majority in the House of Representatives. In truth, it cost them in a handful of districts that really mattered. And now, in several of them, like Virginia 7, for instance, they have incumbents. And those incumbents have the power of the incumbency and shifting demographics that work in their favor, right? All they needed to do was survive for a few here and there. But they're very good at creating third-party alternatives that are based and backed by long-standing research that show that it's a midterm, especially in the case of midterm elections. The group that we're concerned about most here, they don't come out that much in midterms. But when they do, if you give them a viable alternative that's presented to them, they will, in significant enough numbers, back that alternative or third-party candidate, even if they're not even that familiar with them. And I know that's a sad commentary, but it is the truth. In response, I have told the Republican Party that it would be wise to do the same, since there also is research to suggest that there is a part of the Democratic coalition that will vote for the viable alternative if you give it to them. However, they have not saw the wisdom in this, and their donors have not seen the wisdom in it. They have not funded these, even if they are sham candidacies, because guess what? They almost always are. Eric Hovda had to deal with one, even in a presidential cycle. In the presidential cycle, you're going to see more of these voters come out, especially when someone like Donald Trump is on the ballot. However, there's no love for the Republican Party with these voters. They voted for the Republican candidate for president, as they have in the past. Sometimes even the Democratic one, depending on who it is. However, given somebody else down ballot, running under the right banner. So when I say viable, what do I mean by viable? They have to have the right name. It really is that simple. I'm sorry, but it's true. That's what the research shows. If, for instance, it says something like John Smith, Jon Snow, right? For you, I'm rewatching myself late at night. I'm rewatching reruns of Game of Thrones, for instance. Generic candidate A, Independent Party, American Party, Anti-Tax Party, the Tax Reform Party. Anything that speaks like it's a right-leaning party. That's not the Republican Party. Not filled with those who have sympathies for fat cats or K Street lobbyists or the military-industrial complex who pressures the president to launch airstrikes on Middle Eastern countries suspected of developing weapons programs. That's all it takes. It cost several Republican candidates in 2018 those districts. Democrats used bots. There were big headlines about it. They used bot farms to push fake. I mean, these are fake right-leaning candidates. They're not real. In order to elevate their message, not because they were trying to win those voters over. They know they cannot. Their hope and their goal and their accomplishment, they did it, is to just get enough of them to vote for these alternative candidates. Elon Musk choosing the America Party is not an accident. He's not a stupid man. He's eccentric and apparently stoned half the time, but he's not stupid. He knows exactly what he's doing. There's a lot of research from Oxford and other places on this. It dates back years. We know it's true. The last bit of it was conducted in 2019 on their effective use of this in the 2018 midterm elections. Democrats have been smart enough to do this and have been doing this for a long, long time. Again, the MAGA candidate, supposedly MAGA candidate, who was on the ballot in Wisconsin, almost certainly cost Eric Hovda, election fraud or not, guys, in Milwaukee late at night on the, I don't want to hear it. If Republicans would have been smart enough to do the same and run somebody under, I don't know, the Progressive Party banner, they would do it too. And it would be a question of who's got the more sophisticated misdirection campaign going on. Because I don't know a better kind of like halfway made up word to explain what it is they're doing. They're attempting to get these people who have very, very loose loyalties to the one of the two major parties in the country, and they're going after a certain group of people. And if this freaking thing loads up, I will show you exactly who they're going after. Locals, you know what? I think I'm just going to drop the results of this thing. Oh, it still may be. I will make a new report for you, and I will share it on locals right now. Let me see. Standard fall off statistics, crosstab report. Let me make a standard report for you right now. I'll put it up for you guys in the comment section. You'll see how many were partial, how many disqualified. I'm going to leave it all on there for you. Geez, man, it's remarkably consistent how many people are saying they voted for Trump and how many people are saying they voted for Kamala Harris. Let me rename this report National Poll Locals Only. And actually, in truth, YouTube, if you're YouTube members, I'm man of my word. I will put it in the community section, but don't share it. It's for you. All right. I will eventually get everybody a I will get everybody crosstabs for it, but let me just make sure some of this is deleted. It's totally unnecessary. We have the economic confidence index. And then there's the other one. I'll give you two. Yep, that hasn't moved. Several of this stuff hasn't moved at all. It's actually kind of interesting. I will add some more back, but there's some questions I'm going to leave out for right now. I'm going to put them in the crosstabs. We'll drip them over the week to talk about them. And then there is whether or not Donald Trump, keeping campaign promises in the wake of this bill. So far, 47 to 37. It's not bad for Donald Trump. Honestly, it's not that bad. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. And Democrats continue their dive into, I don't even know where it's going. But let's look at this question because this is the one I want to talk to you about. I don't know how far they're going to fall. Currently, 33% is where they're at. They have fallen lower than that. I'm talking about self-identification. We had a whole show on this last week, by the way. All right. These are the people that we're concerned about for the purpose of this conversation. Okay. If those people that we interview say that they are an independent or they are something else, we ask them the following question. And you know this if you've been following us for a long time. Would you say your views are more closely aligned to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, equally close to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, or share little in common with either? Bear with me, guys. I just said I was going to give this to locals, and I didn't. My bad. Let me see. I'm going to make it password protected, and I will give you the password locals so you can read along with it. All right. Don't click on the link yet until you get the password. There is the link. Here is the password. YouTube, I'll make you one too. All right. You guys see it? It's in the comment section. You're more than welcome to go and play around with it. Let me go back to that though so I can bring it up. Here we go. Back to the bread and butter question. All right. This is in order of ascension, not in order it was asked. When we asked this question, the Democratic Party and Republican Party options are rotated at random. Equally aligned is pinned as the third option, meaning it will not rotate at random. It will always be the third option. And shared little in common with either will always be pinned as the fourth option. So Democrats and Republicans getting an equally fair, chance to have an independent choose them. And then you have the other two pinned. Theoretically, there is the law of first choice, which means that the first choice should be getting a few more answers just because they are the first choice and some people are lazy. It even happens when they vote. All right. That's just a reality. Oh, really? Yeah, but guess what? You eating chocolate doesn't suffice for that. Give me a second and I'll come and make I'll come and get you something real, okay? All right? Chocolate bar. Hershey bar? Come on, kid. All right. Share little in common with either, again, was number one this month. It's not by a lot, but you can see that it is a significant amount of around the 20, what is it, 26% have said they're independents? Let's look. 24 plus 5. All right. So 20 of the 29% who say that they were independent or something else, like they're a third party. So we know the third party vote has a cap of roughly about 5%. But of those, 28% say that they share little in common with either, which gives, theoretically at least, gives a third party option somewhere in the neighborhood of 9%, 8% potential. All right. And I'm being generous here. Someone else, something else, third party identification is lower than 5%. But Not all of the independent options have a leaning. Most independents have a leaning, about a quarter. About a quarter in addition to that. Say, and a little less than a quarter. In addition to that, say that they're basically equally aligned with both of these parties. And they could go either way. They're a true swing vote. The others are really not. And by the way, there is more Democratic Party alignment than Republican, although it's very close, 26 to 24 when you round. However, there is a question, and it's a very we really have to keep a very close eye on this. It's a question of whether or not some independents are being cannibalized here. Republican identification is getting much, much, much higher. This is now common every week. It's like 38 to 33. That's a ridiculous. Actually, holy crap, it's up from last week. Sorry, my fault. It's up. It was R4 last week. The hell happened? It's R5 now. And we know from the recalled votes, about 51% say they voted for Trump. It's a little bit higher, but some people lie. They always say they voted for the winner when they really didn't. So it's not like we're overstating Trump's vote share here by a lot. We're not. We're not talking about the New York Times poll, which had 36% Trump support in the recalled vote. We're not that far off the mark. That is easily explained by people lying. You can even tell that America First is right. It rose again another point this week, by the way. So the country is just getting more MAGA. It's getting more Republican, but not really Republican. It's getting more MAGA. Even though independents, when you look at these independents, they don't have a great approval rating for Trump right now. And that's probably because so many of Trump's independents are now just calling themselves MAGA. That's just the reality. And it follows the registration patterns. We might expect in the future, if this continues, heavily Republican electorates, but that Democrats win independents. In fact, that happened in some states with Kamala Harris, but she still lost because there was just the number of Republicans are growing. Barack Obama benefited from this when the roles were reversed, the tables were turned. Barack Obama lost independents, but it was because there were so many more Democrats in that electorate. He was easily able to beat Mitt Romney anyway. The same is happening, only the tables are turned. Anywho, this is the number that we start at when we look at who are we really talking to when we're talking about a third party. When you look at these people, these are the people, when you choose something like America Party, Indians Party, Tax Reform Party, Small Government Party, whatever. There are all these different names that they've drummed up over the years that attract right-leaning independent voters that aren't particularly fond of the Republican Party. And then there's this, again, these are the people we constantly highlighted before the election, during the primaries for both the Democratic and Republican Party nominations. How many times we singled this group out and we said, look at this vote. It is a massive part of the Trump or bust vote. Look at this vote. This is why Donald Trump does better than Ron DeSantis, than Nikki Haley, because these people, other pollsters were screening out, by the way, these people are going to vote if he's the nominee, and they're going to vote for him. They don't see, by the way, they did, but they didn't necessarily vote for Eric Hovda. They didn't necessarily vote for Mike Rogers. They sure as hell did not vote for Republican congressmen down ballot, many of whom they simply left blank. All over, and especially where it really mattered. So this concept that it's going to have no impact, even if he puts all this money, it's a joke, it's that, you better think again. Many of these districts are decided by hundreds of votes. California 13 was decided by 400 plus votes. California 13, sorry. We can go all around the country and find these districts. There will be, in any case, 15 big toss-ups. I mean, real toss-ups. Hardcore. They are razor's edge. If Republicans were smart enough to run a fake-ass leftist under the banner of the Progressive Party, they're going to pull, I don't know, a point to 3 points away, and that's the ball game. They better sure as hell do it now. Because Musk is going to be targeting these people, and he doesn't have to do it everywhere. I would not at all put it past the man to play the role of saboteur. Folks, the guy's loyalty very clearly can be bought with government contracts and appointments to agencies he cares a lot about. You think he's not willing to blow a couple $100 million in certain states? Come on. Of course he is. Now, it's smart of Trump to go the route that he is going to paint him in that. And the one thing that they have going for them, do I have that in that poll? I don't think we did do Musk this week. But take somewhere like South Carolina, for instance, which we did just poll like within days. And that state, we asked about Elon Musk and his favorability. It's like the third time we've done it there. The guy is the highest we've ever gotten him in that red state when he was still in Trump's good favor was about 45%. That's it. When you ask about the project he was working on, gets in the 60s. They love it. Government accountability? Oh, yes. Thank you, ma'am. May I have another? But Musk, he's toxic now. Again, he doesn't need to win a majority to have an impact. His candidates only need to pull a few points from one side or the other. The idea, which is one commentary, I don't mean to I'm not going to humiliate anybody. But one of the most ridiculous takes that I read about this is that there was no constituency for a socially liberal or socially more moderate, yet fiscally conservative platform in this country. What in the Holy Father's name are you talking about? That is Donald Trump. More tolerant towards same-sex marriage. More tolerant, although opposed still, towards abortion policy. More tolerant of basically everything that he grew up, that was his vice president's culture. Yet, common sense conservatism, with the exception of breaking your promise to people you made over Social Security. That's just an incredibly stupid take. Of course there is. Most young people don't care how somebody else, what they do in their own bedroom. Even if they don't approve of it themselves, it's just not their hill to die on. They have bigger problems. They want to own a home one day. They want to own a car one day. Or be able to even afford a lease on one. They're certainly not dying on the abortion hill. In case you haven't noticed, you got your ass kicked in Ohio. Mr. Red Staters. It's just dumb. Of course there is. And you don't need that much of them. All you need is a few of them. Damn, it's 3:06 already. Yeah, I mean, you know what, locals? By all means, go through that. Go check out, and maybe I'll regroup it for you to make it easier for you to understand. Regroup age. Look at geography. I mean, tiny light footprint on the weights of that sample. And it's not a small sample. For people who don't know, I can't remember how many people were like disqualified. Well, let's go look. 3,600 with 147 who still are taking it, and 431 who disqualified themselves as of July 7th, which is today. So I don't think I made the date thing available here. Let me see. No, I should allow question filtering for you guys. This way you can. I'll eventually put the crosstabs on there anyway, but um, I'll allow question. I'll do the allow question filtering so you can click by like party and you can go through and see. Those are just totals right there in top lines. But if you go through and look at all the demographics, you'll see everything's pretty much in order. I mean, it's not pretty much. It's in order. The country's getting that Republican by identification. Democrats are in a real bad spot right now. So again, this is now how many weeks in a row that we have had an R plus, not even likely voter sample. Likely helps Democrats. The registered voter sample is significantly more Republican than anything I've ever polled in my lifetime. It just is. Now, I wasn't around during the height of the Bush popular George W. Bush post 9/11 era. I was not in the craft yet, but I still don't recall seeing numbers like this. Could be wrong, but most of Bush's numbers were fueled by a bipartisan rally around the flag effect. It wasn't overwhelming dominance among Republicans. That's just not the case. All right, and YouTube, I'll get you the same. All right. Don't forget, speaking of which, the link to the public polling project is below. This thing was not funded. I had to pull the trigger on it. So do what you can. Share it far and wide as always. And don't forget, if you like the videos, like them. And of course, share them too. Look, we're on Truth, Getter, X, everywhere, Y, Z, Rumble, YouTube. The best place to follow us, folks, the best place is right there. Yep, I'm doing it right. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All alone this week. The girls of the neighborhood are all gone at their little convention, and it's just us boys. So don't be surprised if I pop on to say like a word here and there. All right, as long as you don't mind the little one running around, because he's got to stay with daddy. He's got to hang out with daddy in the office all day. Poor little kid. I'm going to try to get done at reasonable hours and maybe take him swimming or something. I don't know. I don't want him to get bored, the poor little guy, But again, I think that's it. We're going to be doing Mark Robert's new show, which is going to be really cool. It's Wednesday. It's not related to politics. He's going to have people on, and we'll talk about cultural stuff too, but it's like, this is your life kind of thing, right? So mostly it's going to be about me. So if you want to learn more about me, like a sidebar, only I guess more in depth, they want baby pictures and crap. I kid you not. If you want to learn more about the People's Pundit, that would be the time to do it. Keep your eyes peeled to locals. I'll share it when Mark gives me the link, but get ready. It's Wednesday night. Should be fun. All right. And there'll be other stuff this week as well. Potentially this tonight may be an announcement that got held off because of the holiday, but maybe not. It's completely not up to, it's up to us, but you got to do these things right. So I'm kind of waiting. We are waiting, which you'll see what I mean by we. And just stay tuned. I'll see you guys soon. All right, all the best. In some third parties, very, very rare success. Requesting $1 billion number, they have enough to take away from the balance of power. Republicans, be smart, go fund some progressive